Happy Tuesday, and it's day 12 of Walk with Winston. Again from my office park here in the Tampa Bay region. So perhaps you don't know much about Tampa and in this area, but we're just now getting decent light. It's, I don't even know what time it is. After 6 o'clock in the morning, and so I was just having a video chat with my sister on her walk, and there in Chesapeake it's bright daylight, and here it's just dusk. And so on the west coast of Florida it is really only just now getting light, and so it's about 30 some minutes difference in terms of the daylight being on the west coast of Florida. So here we are. It's Tuesday, and it's going to be a great day. I was thinking about our next topic in terms of how to make change winnable. And I recognize that not all change is something that's self-directed. In some cases, change is thrust upon us, and we don't have a choice in terms of whether we're the initiator of change or the receiver of change. I used to joke when I worked in one of my first jobs that I didn't get stress, I just gave stress to others. Well, that was a bad boss statement. You can hashtag that bad boss. But in some cases, change is something that we initiate, and other times change is thrust upon us. Regardless of how change is coming into your life, it's still a choice in terms of what our mindset's going to be. So this upcoming video series is really designed to help you change your mindset about change. And so, as I talked about yesterday, this week we're going to talk about the first three elements of making change a game. That's a hashtag that you'll see me post from time to time. Change is a game. If we think about all the negative baggage that's associated with change in our culture, it's hard to see change as a game. And that's why I think our mindset is so important, that we've got to take intentionality with the change and gamify it to the best that we can. So this week the content's going to be about the first three steps of gamifying change, which is an acronym called WIN. And the first word of WIN is winning, making change winnable. So let's talk about how to make change winnable. You all have heard the story about Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile, and how for decades, if not hundreds of years, people were trying to break the 4-minute mile. And scientists believe that the human body could not withstand that kind of speed. That people said, oh, the human heart would explode if a person ran a 4-minute mile, had that much exertion. And then others said, had studied it, and they said, well, you have to have all these perfect conditions in the race to make that possible. Well, Roger Bannister, unfortunately, ignorance was bliss for him. He didn't know any of these things. He didn't know that these studies existed. And even if he came across them, he never chose to believe them. Instead, he was convinced that was something that was a challenge that was winnable for him. And so part of this is having the right mindset in terms of the challenge and the change that we're facing, is to believe that it is achievable. Well, how do we do that? Some of our goals are so big and so daunting. You know, I've got a goal of restoring my health to where I was as recently as 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago was when I began very significant life changes. And because I bought into my old patterns of how I dealt with change, the result of that was a lot of emotional eating, which then put on a lot of weight. So to reverse that, I'm having to reverse and recreate and restructure my mindset about change. And so in this case, I'm looking at making it winnable. And so for me, I'm chunking this exercise into a series of smaller mini events. While this is a marathon, I'm putting this into a bunch of mini sprints. And so for me, making this health journey more winnable means that I am, for every 10 pounds that I lose, it's going to be a celebration. And I'm going to celebrate with you right here on this video every time I'm doing 10 pounds. Now, I've already committed in a previous video that I'm only going to weigh in once a month. My next weigh-in will be just before Labor Day. And so, you know, I'm not going to be giving updates super regularly, about once a month on the weight journey. But I'm breaking this into smaller pieces. And the other thing I'm doing is that I am drawing upon my prior experience to create the model of change. So, for example, and I mentioned this I think yesterday, is that one way, going back to Roger Bannister, for example, once he broke that record, within the next month, 3 people in the same race broke the 4-minute mile. So once a goal is achievable and others can model off of it, people become convinced that the change or the achievement is winnable. And so for me, one of the ways I know that this health journey is winnable is because I've done it before. And because I've done it before and maintained that weight for a very long time, not just a rebound type situation. I did it in a healthy way. I did it in a sustainable way. Is now I'm taking a page out of that textbook, my own life experience textbook, to say, hey, I've done it before, I can do it again. And so how did I do it before? In the case of my weight management, I mentioned yesterday, journaling, portion control, faith and belief, and installing a keystone habit that would support my change, which in my case is to be alcohol-free during this transition. So that's my playbook. It's a very simple playbook, very easy to follow, and I believe will lead me, and I have faith because I've seen the results before. And I've heard all the BS about, it's harder to lose weight when you get older and blah, blah, blah. Well, that may be true, but I'm more determined, I'm more seasoned too, to do it. So, winnable comes down to chunking drawing upon the experiences of the past. Maybe you haven't had that success, but you know others who have, and you can model your change process after their experience. Tony Robbins talks about that a lot in terms of how he accelerated the biggest changes in his life was he became a voracious reader of biographies of people who had achieved in life what he dreamt about. And so he read their biographies, and he read them not for entertainment, but for education. He wanted to see What did they do? How did they do it so that they could achieve the success that they did? And I believe that this one step is the foundational underpinnings of successful change. If we don't believe that change is possible, or if we're not committed to the change because we have lingering doubts in our head, then the rest of the change process is going to be really undercut. Our ability to change will not take hold. So I'm probably going to spend a couple more days exploring this foundational piece of change with you, because it'd be easy to go ahead and move on to the rest of the content. But I really want to get in our soul, yours and mine together, that the change that we're contemplating is winnable, is doable, it's done. A lot of people talk about how, that we have to feel it and imagine it. So I'll give you a great example from Instagram a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week. So my buddy Chris Pavone, shout out to Fitness Focus Mastermind at Chris, K-R-I-S-P, Pavone, Pavone.com/mastermind. Chris, one of his goals in his coaching journey is to become a public speaker and to be on a stage, international stage, presenting his life story, which is a very compelling life story of how a young kid in Northeast Ohio became a WWE superstar. Very, very cool story. Well, anyway, the other day, Chris on Instagram he was out with his wife, Rachel, and they were at this, it looked like a pavilion. I'm not quite sure where they were in Tampa, but Rachel had a video of Chris kind of going to the front of this pavilion, doing a big flex as if he was about to begin his speech. And I wrote a comment on his Instagram post. I said, that is the moment you became an international speaker. Because you could see and feel the belief that he had in that dream. It was no question that he saw himself as an international speaker. There was no doubt. And not only was it an intellectual exercise, it was an emotional exercise. You could feel it just watching the video. And so, same thing with my friend Cliff I referenced yesterday. When Cliff declared himself an athlete at his heaviest weight ever, I kind of made fun of him in my own head, but deep down inside, I could hear the conviction. I could feel the conviction. And so I want us to not only imagine our change as winnable, but to get that deep down into our soul. So your homework today, if you're on this journey with me, we have to take action. We just can't be consumers of information. We have to take action. So here's my suggestion and encouragement for you today. Write down a simple statement of what your change is that you're dreaming of. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe you want to have a family. Maybe you want to be happily in a relationship. Maybe you want to have margin and freedom in your life. Maybe you want to have financial security. Maybe, like me, you want to get healthy. Well, it's one thing to write it down and have it as a dry piece of toast sentence on a piece of paper. It's another thing to begin digging into that dream and making it winnable. It starts with belief, absolute conviction that you can make it happen. And so today, my challenge to myself and my challenge to you is to begin capturing that. Capturing that dream. And then we're going to reinforce it with that emotion. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming video as well. So, what is that dream? Capture it. And then begin to think about how you can make it winnable. You know, this whole game theory is based upon video games. And how, and so we're leveling up in our change journey together, our change transformation together. We're going to level up so that we can achieve the dream of our lives. With that, you guys have a great Tuesday, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.